Visions and Learning the Scripture for my book, The Life of God's Righteous Servant of Isaiah 53. In the first years of my punishment, chastisement, maltreatment, crushing and bruising, by the words and power of God, as his righteous servant described in Isaiah 53, he gave me incredible visions that served as storylines for what we did and what we talked about during that time. The most involved was water in the temple, and it is a good example of how God would use the stories of the Tanakh and the New Testament to teach me the Scripture using visions and use it in my daily life in God's fire of refinement. One summer, I think in 2009, he first spoke to me in 2007. As I was being prepared, suitable for God's purpose, he had me terminate my law licenses in Hawaii and in Texas and quit working. And I was living on my last dollars at a weekly hotel outside of Houston in a rural area. God was cutting me off from the world of material things and association with society to fulfill the prophecy of being cut off and taken from the land of the living of Isaiah 53, verse 8. I was in his grasp every moment of every day, my every move at his direction, listening and talking to him. This writing is of a vision based on a story of a vision by Ezekiel. God taught me through much mental duress and anguish how to prepare for a vision in a meditative state of mind. It takes an hour or more, and you cannot let yourself fall asleep. That was in the early years. Today, he can just take me into a vision, meditative state of mind or not. One night, God had me read Ezekiel chapter 47, and this is the first verses 1 through 12. He led me back to the entrance of the temple, and I found that water was issuing from below the platform of the temple eastward, since the temple faced east. But the water was running out at the south end of the altar, under the south wall of the temple. Then he led me out by way of the northern gate and led me around to the outside of the outer gate that faces in the direction of the east. And I found that water was gushing from the south wall. As the man went on eastward with a measuring line in his hand, he measured off 1,000 cubits and led me across the water. The water was ankle deep. Then he measured off another 1,000 and led me across the water. The water was knee deep. He measured off a further 1,000 and led me across the water. The water was up to my waist. When he measured yet another 1,000, it was a stream I could not cross, for the water had flown into a stream that could not be crossed except by swimming. Do you see, O mortal? He said to me, and he led me back to the bank of the stream. Okay, that's verses 1 through 6. I don't need to go through 7 through 12. After discussing every line of these verses with God, I had a vision of entering the temple gate on the east side. The temple as I had seen it in pictures rebuilt, though the sacrificial altar in front was not there. I am looking directly at the entrance in the front, just inside the walls. And from beneath the doors, water is pouring out and flowing down the steps. I look down and see my bare feet are in water, up to my ankles. God always speaks to me during these visions. I had visions I have had visions of angels, but they never speak to me. The next day, I went to the Addicks Dam Reservoir at God's direction, just outside the city limits. The rain had been coming down hard, starting to fill the reservoir, which is usually just a dry, low area of land with levees to keep the water from the city. God had me take off my shoes, which was unusual, and head to a path that went up and over the levee, which is about 30 yards high in walking distance, and into a barren forest. Following the path, I came to an easement for electrical lines, some 50 to 75 yards across, and going off into the distance as far as I could see both ways. It was filling with water. As I stepped forward, I looked down and saw my feet immersed in water, just as in my vision, except that instead of stone, it was grass beneath my feet. I turned to the right as I came to the center of the easement, and the water was now knee-high. I worried about stepping on something sharp and cutting my feet. I kept walking, and every 100 yards or so, the water was deeper and deeper, the easement dropping as I went along. It was slow walking, and we were talking about many different things all around me, and the scripture also. I could see far ahead a large electrical tower. There was a mound of grass in front of it, raised up above the water. When I reached it, the water was now chest high. I rested on the mound, and then God told me to follow the easement to the left. It was miles to the next levee, which I could not even see. I started wading down the easement, and the water was soon over my head. I was very cold and tired. God told me to turn around and start back.